Hey guys, so I went to Fermilab last week, and I just wanted to show you some of the pictures and videos from my visit. So you drive under this thing. This is the entrance to Fermilab, and they have a little science museum as you go in. And this is a bubble chamber. You have basically it's a bubble chamber. As particles go through it, they make paths, and each particle has a unique path. This is a really huge bubble chamber. They have an exhibit. It's really cool, and they have really odd road names here. At Fermilab. Here's their power. This is a capacitor tree. They use it, I guess, to store energy so they didn't put such a huge load on the grid. But you see they have these industrial power cables coming in, and they even have their own substation because they use massive amounts of power, huge power. This is their computing center, Feynman Computing Center. This is what it looks like. I think the architecture is really neat on this building. But here they have an exhibit as you go in. Sorry for the glare of the glass. You can see the evolution of data from floppy drives, these large disk arrays, and that whole disk you were just looking at is actually one giant disk. And then you can see the tiny disk compared to that from 2007. And now we have solid state, like flash drives and stuff. And so here is some of their actual computers. Really all you get to see is blinky lights, but that's good enough for me. Sorry for the glass glare again, but they have huge racks of computing here, but most of their computing is actually done off-site in computer warehouses, and the data is just processed here. And at this computing center, it's interesting because they actually do physical electronics, like the hobby that I do. They have computers open. So this is where they built CDF. They have liquid nitrogen tank next to it, I suppose, to cool the magnet in CDF. Anyway, this whole warehouse it's very messy. It's not a super clean place. And this is a full-scale picture of CDF. It's a huge detector. It's very large, and they would have built it right there. And these are all the names of the people that have built it. And they have this huge gantry crane overhead they can use to bring in large sections of the magnet. And this is a model of CDF. Sorry for the bad pictures. Really, I was more focused on listening to the tour than I was taking pictures because I was just so excited. It was so awesome. It's a great trip if you can get anybody to give you the tour. Anyway, so this is a gas chamber. They filled it with argon, I think. And basically what it is wires strung across, and they'd fill it with gas, and as the particles go through, it energizes the wires. You see this is where the particles would go through in the center. And this is one of the techniques that is commonly used in particle detectors called B-tagging. You can find B quarks. And here's sort of a model of the silicon detectors. You can see they would have gone on those shelves, and you can see some of the electronics. Obviously, it wasn't full inside. And these are the actual wires coming out of CDF. There's so many wires, it's ridiculous. And these are delivering the actual data from the experiment. And this whole place is just very messy. It's not clean at all, but it's so cool. It's just like, it's awesome. It's like heaven for me. And so they have all these pipes delivering liquid argon and different stuff. This you can see on the internet. I think they're prototyping the ANOVA detector, but I'll talk about the neutrinos later. That is a full-size replica of CDF, like I said. They would have built it right there, and then they would have just rolled it in on a track, because the beam is actually under the bridge that I'm standing on. It's about, Tevatron is 30 feet underground, and the CDF detector would just be rolled to the right. You can see there's a little doorway sort of where CDF would have been, and they would just roll the detector, well, not roll it in, but roll it in on a track into the beam and just fit it in. And you can see that little hole in the center is where the vacuum pipe would have gone with the actual collisions. So it's really cool just seeing the actual detector, and it's huge. It's very deep as well. They said this is like a 2D model, but it's very deep detector. This is D0. We're just driving past the buildings here. Didn't get to go into D0, but they said it's not as big as CDF. It was sort of proposed after CDF was proposed, but it basically looks for the same thing as CDF, looking for it's a general purpose detector, just like Atlas or CMS at the LHC. But it's not as large as CDF, and it's built differently, so it's looking for the same thing in different ways. But they said it's just as functional, and it's not like it's a worse detector or a subpar detector. It's on par with CDF. And here's some magnets they just had. This Magnon exhibit, a huge dipole magnet. I don't know what it's from, but it looks like a giant wall transformer. And this is the cooling. I just thought it was funny because it says no fishing in the main ring. That's what Tevatron was called before they called it Tevatron. It was the main ring. I just think it's funny because, you know, no fishing, and this is like a particle physics lab. I don't know who would go fishing in water, but they do have low levels of tritium there, so radiation is not an issue. Here's their large office building. It's the Wilson Hall after it's Fermilab's first director. And it's really nice inside. It's very open. It's very light. They got the plants. And it's 16 stories tall. And I think there's 1,900-ish people that work at Fermilab. Anyway, this is the view from the top. You can see the industrial power cables coming in. That blue arch there, that is the very first things. That you can see that blue arch is the meson area, fixed target area. You can see the capacitor tree at the bottom. That geodesic dome to the right of the power cables, that was the old proton area, and right in front of that was the old neutrino area. Anyway, this is a cute model they have on the 15th floor. You can see the Tevatron and the recycler. So here is Tevatron itself, the beast. And it is very large, 4 miles in circumference. As you can see, this is a view from the top floor, and people like to jog around it for exercise because it's so large. You won't be able to see it from this video very well at the moment, but there is a hump in the earth, basically, and Tevatron is 30 feet under this hump. Everywhere there's an underground drilled out beam at Fermilab, they do have one of these humps, so you can tell where you are. And those cables running across the top, they're actually pipes. They're carrying like the coolants for the magnets and some of the power for the magnets and stuff like that. So they're carrying the liquid helium and liquid nitrogen that's necessary. And you can see here's one of the underground access shafts. They have lots of access shafts, so you don't actually have to go that far in the beam underground. Here, before Tevatron was called Tevatron, they had this water, and the water was actually used for cooling the normal temperature magnets. It was only called Tevatron once there was superconducting magnets, and they would use the water to water cool the normal magnets. As you can see, there's CDF, and there's the storage tanks for all the cold liquids. The computing center's on the left, and they have like the liquid helium and argon and nitrogen source. And then that blue building over there is D0. But back to the magnets, they would actually use the water to cool the room temperature magnets, and then once they installed superconducting magnets, it was called Tevatron because they vastly improved its performance. You can see the normal temperature magnets are on top, and what they actually did is they put the superconducting magnets below it to save room, and so the beam no longer, well, when it was Tevatron, it would no longer go through the top. They just left that there. It actually went through the bottom, and those are the coolant pipes. So this is their accelerator chain. As you can see from this picture, this is sort of the smaller accelerators. You have the LINAC on the left, the CW multiplier that they actually start with. They have a huge CW multiplier. I didn't get any pictures of it, but it produces 175 keV protons that are shot through the LINAC, which is that straight building on the right, and that ring there is the booster, and that building in the middle of the boosters produces low conductivity water for use in cooling the normal temperature magnets that are actually used in the booster, as well as in other experiments. And I actually got to go and see the klystrons and the waveguides and stuff for the LINAC. I didn't get to see the LINAC itself, but I saw the CW multiplier. And so here we are driving around the booster, and you can see that building where they produce the low temperature water. And right here we're coming up to the P-bar source, which is where they produce the antiprotons. They're in these trapezoidal buildings. This is actually where they make the antiprotons. And in case you're wondering, the way their accelerator chain actually works is they take the protons, actually hydrogen is what it is, and they basically they shoot it across heated cesium. Well, first they have a CW multiplier, and they get 175 keV hydrogen or shot. Oh no, sorry. What they do first is they run over heated cesium, which actually likes to give up an electron, before they put it in CW multiplier. Sorry, I got that wrong earlier. And before they put it in the CW multiplier, it has 2 electrons. It's shot through the CW multiplier, which it gives it 175 keV, and then it goes through the booster with these 2 electrons. So it's actually ionized hydrogen, not a proton. And then they strip the electrons of it once it gets to the booster. This is due to a trick where they can actually combine the beams combine beams and get extra luminosity and extra energy, I think. But they're actually shooting for the first two pre-accelerator stages. They're actually shooting the hydrogen with 2 electrons instead of 1. And then after it's shot through the booster, it's then just protons, it goes into what you've been seeing here, which is the main injector. The main injector is actually not necessary for Tevatron to run, but it boosts its energy. And the main injector is an oval shape. It also houses the recycler, which basically stores antiprotons until Tevatron is ready to use them. And the main injector is sort of like the superproton synchrotron for the LHC. It's not necessary to run, but it boosts the energy of the LHC. It's basically like another pre-accelerator, another booster, but they actually run the recycler and the main injector on top of each other. And it's an oval shape, which I find weird, because these are usually circles. Here you can see we're sort of going back in the accelerator chain, and in that building is the CW multiplier, which I saw. And then the LINAC, and the CW multiplier is huge, but they're actually thinking of replacing it with a smaller, new technology accelerator that apparently the press people are angry about, because they say, oh, we love this huge CW multiplier, because it looks fantastic, but, if they can replace it with something better, go ahead. And here you can see the computing center on the right, and then that hump right there that you just saw was the right there that's the meson area, that blue arch. It was a fixed target area when Fermilab was first built. That bump right there that you were seeing was the neutrino area. This is actually their new neutrino facility, the NUMI beamline, this is called, and the no neutrinos are actually going through here. This is just a human access shaft. This is the minos detector, and this is the minerva detector. And the main difference is that Minerva has a second detector out at the Sudan mine, and there's no hole in the wall, but this is the neutrinos come out. The neutrino beam is actually a Gaussian-shaped beam, and it's got a 2-foot beam at that point. And the beam goes through these detectors, and the way they work, they have these steel plates, and when the neutrinos go through the steel plates, they actually interact with the steel plates. They form an electron shower, and that shower is picked up by the shoot, I forget the name. The siliconate. It sounds like silicanator. Shoot, I just knew this before I was going to report it on YouTube. But anyway, you can look it up, and I'll post it in the description. But this scintillator, that's what it's called. Scintillator material basically detects this electron shower and converts it into photons. The photons from the scintillator are then sent into some photomultiplier tubes, which are then read by computer sensors. And they have these coming out. The scintillator that you see here is only a third of the scintillator, because they have scintillator going in 3 different directions, so they can sort of detect a 3D image of the electron shower, so they can better diagnose the neutrinos. And so, like I was saying before, the difference between the Minos and the Minerva detector is the Minerva detector actually has a FAR detector out at the Sudan mine in Minnesota. And it's a 10-year-older technology from Minos. And Minos only has a near detector, but Minos can distinguish between electron neutrinos and muon neutrinos. And Minerva can only see electron neutrinos. I'm pretty sure. Sometimes I get Minos and Minerva confused. But I'm pretty sure that Minos is the new one and Minerva is the old one. But anyway, it's interesting because, assuming Minerva is the old one, which I'm pretty sure is correct, Minerva needed 2 floors of computers that are stored down here to read the data. And Minos only needs 2 racks, so they've cut down on their computing by a lot, not because they don't need as much computing, but just because the computers are better. And this is actually the prototype Nova detector. And the problem with the other detectors is the scintillator is that they only get 10% sensing area because you can't sense inside the steel. And the Nova detector actually uses scintillator liquid, which means you get a 90% sensing area, so a huge upgrade. And they do actually have a LHC remote control center, basically, for the the US CMS team and stuff, and they can actually monitor, sorry for the glass flare again, but they can actually monitor the LHC from here, and they have this whole control room set up so they can remotely control it and everything.